Yeah, my name is Alicia.
Could you tell us a little bit about your childhood?
Yeah, so where do I even start? For the first 4 years of my life, I grew up with both of my parents and my younger sister. We're 2 years apart. Um, and to be really raw and transparent, those first 4 years were very traumatic. I watched both of my parents do heroin for all 4 years. Um, and when I was 4 years old, that is when my dad was taken from me. I remember literally in the middle of the night, I remember this loud banging at the door. And with being little, I thought I was dreaming. Uh, but I woke up. I'm like reliving it right now. My heart's beating so fast. But I woke up and I remember peeking outside of the door, and my mom was by the door screaming, "No, no, it wasn't him, it wasn't him." And then I saw my dad get taken by two police officers, and the next time I saw him was in prison. And he was there for 16 years for something he didn't even do. So that was tough. But those first 4 years with my parents was a lot of yelling, a lot of fighting, a lot of drug use, a lot of me taking care of my sister. And then we were saved by my grandparents, which we were really, really lucky for because we could have been in foster care, we could have been on the streets. I don't really know where we would have been. Luckily, I do have a very supportive family, so I'm sure they would have found a way to help us. Uh, but that was really tough growing up with. My sister and I definitely grew close through those times. And after some time, my grandparents started letting us see my mom again when she was visiting her mom, so our grandmother. And we would go over there and, we would have fun, but there were times where my mom wasn't there and I'd be so confused about where she was. She was very in and out of my life and in and out of prison as well. So both of my parents were in prison pretty much our whole lives. Uh, but my grandparents gave us a really great life. They were great people, and I really can't complain about the way they raised us. But of course, there was always that pain and that trauma of wondering if my parents were going to come home and when they were going to come home. And I struggled with that until my dad got out of prison. Yeah.
How'd that feel growing up? Just your parents being gone, and then I guess like them being in prison.
It was different. I felt really alone with that because I never wanted to really show my emotion to my grandparents. They were very accepting, but I never wanted to make them feel bad or make them feel like they weren't doing a good job with me. So it was lonely. And I knew my sister struggled with it too, so I tried to set the example of being strong. And that led to me bottling up a lot of emotions. And that also transitioned into me, wondering why they chose drugs and wondering why they were always doing things to get in trouble. And so I kind of lived that lifestyle for a little while, trying to seek the answers and figure out, what was so great about that. Nothing was great about it. But I definitely would say that I grew up with a strong head on my shoulders, but also very troubled because I bottled up a lot of emotions.
Did you have any dreams as a child?
Oh, yeah. um, actually, now that I think about it, my biggest dream as a kid was to be a teacher. I was always playing like school with my sister and my friends. That was like my favorite thing to play. I would take out some blank paper and write down a math problem or like a fill in the blank sentence. And I remember like anytime any kid or anytime my sister would be like, "I can't do it, it's too hard." The best feeling to me, even when I was little, was saying, "Yes, you can do it." And I just, thinking now, maybe I didn't know this when I was that young, but I knew I wanted to make people feel good. And I didn't know how I was going to do that, but at the time, my childhood dream was to be a teacher.
Could you tell us more about your relationship with your dad?
Yeah. Yeah. So, luckily, my dad called me every day. He called me every single day. I actually have his handwriting tattooed on me. We were really close. He had the conversations with me that my grandparents weren't comfortable having. You know, the boys, the friends, the high school, the all those things. And my grandparents, I'm so grateful for them, but they took us to see him often, probably like once every other week or so. Um, so I'm really grateful to say that my relationship with my dad was pretty healthy until he got out, which is weird because you would think, you know, of course, I was so excited for him to be out. That was one of the best days of my life. He got to see me graduate college, and that was so rewarding for me. But when he got out, there was a lot of transition because I was 21 when he got out, and he was 26 when he went in. So it's like, you know, when he came out, it almost felt like we were brother and sister in a way. Um, and, you know, we're still working on it. Both of us are actively working on it, and I'm grateful for that, but it's much different than I anticipated for sure. But overall, no complaints. I think I'm very lucky to have been able to build a relationship with my dad, even with him being in prison.
What's your fondest memory of him?
My fondest memory. I remember, oh, there's so many things. Before he went to prison, I don't remember. I don't know how I remember these things. But before he went to prison, we were walking our dog together, and the dog was a pit bull, and she took me like all the way down the sidewalk, and we were cracking up. But I just remember him caring for me in such a way where we were able to laugh together over, you know, something that was frustrating to me at the time. But I just remember watching him like band-aid me up and all of those things, and it just made me feel good to know that even though my dad was using drugs and doing all these things, he still had a heart, you know? So I think that's my first fondest memory is just laughing with him, but him caring for me in a way that he was still able to love me through all of his own battles.
Could you tell us about those prison visits, visiting your dad in prison?
Yeah. So for the first, he was in for 16 years. And for the first 10 years, it was tough because it was through the glass. So I didn't hug him. Our thing, you know, like most people, I think that visit in prison was the hand on the glass. That was our, you know, closest touch. And he was awesome. I mean, he talked to us about everything, me and my sister. My biggest subject I struggled with in school was math. And so I remember he would like put fog on the glass with his breath and try and help me with the math problems. Um, the hardest part, I think, of the visitations were leaving. You know, it never got easier. Every year, or every time, I should say, that I left that prison and I left the visit, it was like I was losing him all over again. So that part was really hard. But during the visitation, I was happy to be there because he was very supportive and he wasn't hypocritical. Like, I barely got into trouble, honestly, but when I did, he didn't ridicule me. He kind of just tried to help me understand why it was wrong, you know? So the visits were actually really enjoyable, other than leaving.
And how's the transition now, right? I know, like, I was in prison. I have a lot of friends who are in and out of prison. It's like when we're in prison, we're different. We're sober, one, for the most
Right,
part. You can
right.
still do drugs in prison.
Of course, and you make your alcohol
But
and all
yeah,
that.
you're still like, you're a lot more sober than you're going to be out here.
Uh-huh.
And, we have all these, like, plans. Like, man, I'm going to get it right. I'm not going to mess up again.
Hmm.
I'm not. I really learned my lesson. But then you get out and you're in the same environment and everything's moving super fast, right?
Mm.
And it is a transition.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard to make, especially the longer you've been in there.
Mhm.
How do y'all deal with that? Like the reality of what life is now, because you've been out in society, he's been in an entirely different world.
Yeah.
So how is that transition? Like this is how is that? I would like to know how you think it is for him Like getting to
Yeah.
know, like, man, this is life now. How do I live?
Yeah. When he got out, I was prepared that the transition wouldn't be easy. Of course, both of us had all these hopes and dreams of everything we would do together and all these things. But I also understood, especially with studying psychology in college, that he was going to have a lot of work to do. And so I've always given him grace from the moment he got out. I didn't expect him to call me every day like he did. I knew he would have to revisit all of the struggles that he once had, especially with being back in the same town. I knew that memories would come up and trauma would come up, and he'd probably have a lot of regrets. Um, I really prepared myself because I knew that he would struggle, but the transition is not like anything we expected at the same time, We've fought a lot. We've had a lot of disagreements, more than we've ever had in those 16 years of him being in. Like I said, it almost felt like we were brother and sister, so we were butting heads a lot. Uh, he would want to come out to parties with me and my friends, and I'm like, no, this isn't your scene anymore. And I would worry that maybe he would overdrink and have another addiction, or, I was always worried. So that's where I felt like his sister, like I felt like I had to make sure he didn't mess up and relive the lifestyle before he went to prison. Uh, so the transition was tough, but at the same time, I'm grateful that he didn't relapse. I mean, 16 years is a long time, but like you said, you're not completely sober either. But I'm really proud of him because he went to therapy almost right away. Uh, and he got a job. He has a girlfriend. He got his own place. So I'm really proud because a lot of people in his situation don't have the support he has. So I'm sure that helped a lot too. Um, but in the end, he made all of those moves on his own. So I'm proud of him. The transition wasn't what I expected, but it's a work in progress.
How does that feel in a nutshell?
Overwhelming. Honestly, it's overwhelming, and it's almost like at one point I lost hope. I'm like, we're never going to be as cool as we were when he was in prison. And he doesn't call me as much as I wish he did. And things are different in that way, where I thought we would be closer. But he has his life to live too. And I really do understand that. So it's something that I'm honestly healing from too, because it's not always healthy to have those kind of expectations, and I had a lot of them. But
16-year buildup.
geez, that's a long time.
16 years of
Yeah,
expectations.
seriously, no
Yeah.
kidding. Yeah, so I guess in a nutshell, yeah, overwhelming is the word.
What about your relationship with your mom?
So that one was way more tough. And I think, any girl wishes they could have a healthy relationship with their mom. But that's not what we had at all. So when I was 4, that's when my grandparents took us in. And that's when my mom was in and out of prison. And it was tough because it wasn't like my dad, where, yes, he got into a lot of fights and he was doing some stupid things before he went into prison, which is what made him a suspect. But my mom intentionally did things that brought her there. She was homeless. She robbed banks, and that's most of what she was there for. So it was hard because I didn't know whether she was in the streets or in jail or dead. And like those thoughts built up a lot of resentment and a lot of anger and a lot of frustration because I felt like she should have been in prison and not my dad. But as I grew older, I realized, it's not a healthy way to think. And to be honest, it took me a long time to get to this point. But I forgive her for everything, knowing that she had her own internal battles and that there's a reason she did all of those things. And, I think growing up, our relationship was really rocky. And there was never a point where I was confident in who she was. I feel like I never really knew her the way I wish I could have. um, and vice versa, the way I wish she could have known me, because I think we could have had a really like fun life together. I do think we're a lot alike now that I'm older and like see her for who she is. Uh, but honestly, even as a young girl, I always tried. And my grandparents were so supportive of that. My grandfather helped me look for her all the time. He helped me get in contact with like the prisons that she was at so we could visit her. And visiting her in prison was the best because she was sober. So our relationship during those times were nice and kind of fulfilling, but it always went back to not knowing where she is or what she's doing. So it was really tough.
How did you forgive her? How does that work? How do you forgive somebody?
That's a good question. I forgave her when I started forgiving myself, I think. Because, we all lie at some point in our lives and do things that we may regret, and we live in shame and guilt. But when I started stepping outside of myself to understand that, we're human and we make mistakes, and some things that we do are always for a reason. There's always some foundation behind our decisions. That's when I realized that, okay, like she struggles in her own way and she's not doing any of this to hurt me. It's actually just hurting her. And that's when I started feeling sorry for her and understanding that, we're all human. And I think some people might disagree with this, but I do think all of us have good somewhere inside of us, and I saw that in her.
Because you saw the good in yourself, you were able to see it in your mom.
Mhm. And that's recent too, like the past few years. Yeah, it took a while.
How does that feel?
Free. It feels, yeah, I think free is the best word to describe it, because I feel like I'm no longer holding on to the pain of what if, or the pain of, what if we could have had these times together. It's just like, this is the way my story is, this is what she chose, and that's okay,
What'd you learn from both your parents? Good or bad?
Okay, where do I start? I think I'll start with bad so I can wrap it up with good. Bad, I've learned, and I have big love for them, but I've learned the kind of parent I don't want to be if I am to become a mom one day. I've learned that the decisions I don't want to make. I've learned the anger and the rage that I don't want to consume or have or act on. And the good, I've learned that there is good in everybody. I've learned that we still are deserving of love. And I've learned that if you don't take control of your life, it will take control of you.
So I normally don't ask about people's grandparents. What did you learn from your grandparents?
Oh man, so much. My grandfather was the type of guy where you would approach him and he's like a little short, stocky, big boned Italian guy with huge hands. So when you shake his hand, you're like, oh, like you might be intimidated at first. But he has the biggest heart. Like a lot of my friends went through times where they couldn't go home, so we would be the ones to go pick them up, And it was his idea every time, They don't need to live like that. Let's go get them. Kind of like what he did for me. He was always adopting people in his heart and like trying to save everybody. And that's good and bad because one of the last things he said to me and told me was that I need to live for me and not everyone else. He spent so much of his life living for other people. And while it was a great trait of his, it also brought him to a place of unfulfillment because he never took care of himself. For my gram, I learned how to cook. I've learned to be strong. She's super resilient, and it shows. But I've also learned from her to cope, which is something she didn't do much, I don't think. because she's gone through so much that I feel like she convinced herself that she didn't have time to feel all of that and process all of that. And so I think she still carries a lot with her. But I definitely learned to, through them, I've learned to just be a good person and it'll take me places.
Could you tell us about your first love? It's whatever you associate with your first love. So it can be a person, it can be a hobby, it can be something you like to do, but what that is and how that feels or felt.
Yeah, I would say my first love was probably my grandfather, my pops. And the reason for that is because I vividly remember, I don't remember every detail of the scenario, but I remember walking into a building, which is probably where my sister and I would be um, given away to the system. And I don't think my gram came inside, but I also don't remember that part. But I remember us walking in, and I remember being scared, even though I didn't really know what was happening. And I remember exchanging a look with my grandfather, and the way we looked at each other, he was like, never mind, I don't want to do this. I'm going to take them. And I think that feeling of acceptance and safety was my first real feeling of love.
Go
Yeah.
through the emotions of that in that moment.
Yeah, so I remember feeling relieved. And I don't think I knew exactly what was going to happen to me, but I remember feeling like, wow, like this man is saving me. This man is bringing me home and this man is going to give me a life. And I remember like all of the knots in my stomach going away. I remember feeling safe because they were my favorite people. Like, even when I did live with my parents, I remember always asking to go to Grammy's and go to Pop's house, you know. Uh, so I was there all the time, and they were coming to us all the time too. So to know that I was going home with them was like, I'm being saved. Yeah.
What about your first loss or heartbreak and how that felt?
Um, I would say my first loss and heartbreak is the same as my first love, my pops. Um, a few years ago, he died of cancer. And obviously that was hard because he was like my father, you know. He took care of me and he raised me and he did so much for us. He provided for us. He made sure we were always happy and smiling. And if we weren't, he would say, "Let's go for a drive," or "Let's go to the beach," or he was always getting us out of those things. And so when he passed away, I was like, what am I going to do now? Like, when I'm upset, or who am I going to call? You know, I couldn't call my dad. Um, I mean, I could, but I also felt guilty because he was going through his own thing. So my biggest heartbreak was losing my pops, because one of my dreams and my biggest goals with him was for him to walk me down the aisle. And so having that dream taken away from me was so unexpected. And even now, I'm like, it's one of those things with grief where you still can't believe it and you're still in denial and you're still like, how is this person not in my life anymore, you know? So I think losing him, and still to this day holding the guilt of being the only one in my family that wasn't there during his passing, is like, my heart is still missing pieces from that.
How do you deal with that?
Um, I take out my imaginary toolbox. I have a toolbox full of coping mechanisms that I've built over time. um, in there, I have, you know, things that he has told me, because, like I shared, he told me to focus on myself. And he had all these dreams of traveling and just living a simple life and being a simple man. And that type of simplicity is something I've adopted since his passing. You know, like, I stopped worrying so much about other people and how I can save them, and I started focusing on me and my inner world, knowing that the more change I make in my inner world, the more change I can make in the outer world. And yeah, the way I cope through him in that heartbreak is just taking in everything he's taught me and everything he shared with me and implementing it and living it out by traveling and by being a good person and letting my heart lead me.
Who first taught you love and how?
Me, I think. I think the way I first taught myself love was to look inward, because my first time experiencing love was with my pops and being saved in that way. But I think the next time I was saved was me coming home to me and me saving myself from making poor decisions and acting out of trauma and pain, and instead giving myself the love that I needed when he passed, and giving myself grace for all of the mistakes that I've made based off of my pain. I think a lot of my trauma has transitioned into so many things that I quote unquote regret, and the only way to get through all of that and to heal from all of that was to just accept that it's in the past and that the only way through is forward. So I think giving myself love by practicing different things and learning different things and implementing different things really helped me form a new way of thinking about myself, about others, about the world, about the life, the kind of life, and the quality of life that I want to live.
How does that feel?
It feels empowering. I think so many of us, especially in the world that we live in now, are so inspired by other people's lives. And when I got caught up in that, sometimes I would scroll social media and just think like, oh, I wish, I wish I could have that life. I wish I could be that happy. I wish I could have that relationship. But when I realized and became aware that I was doing stuff like that, it's like, I was like, no, I want to be self-inspired, I want to be empowered by my own ways and my own thoughts and my own beliefs. And for the past 4 years, that's what I've been working on. I've been working on just loving me for who I am, who I was, who I'm becoming, loving the life I had, the life I have.
How does that work, right? So how do you really, really, really love yourself completely the way you are? Not contingent also on work that you do, just purely state of being.
Yeah, I like that word, purely. I think the first step is acceptance. Accepting the kind of life you have, accepting the body you have, accepting the mind you have, accepting the culture you're from, accepting all of who you are and what you are. And then the next step is imagining, using your imagination for who you want to be, what you want to have, what kind of mind you want to have, who you see yourself to be in 5 years, falling in love with that person. And then the third step, believing that you can become all of that and that you can have all of that. And I think belief is one of the hardest things ever, especially with the world we live in. I think so many people lose faith in what can be. But I think believing and having hope and having faith that this isn't all there is, that there's so much more to us and to this life. I think for me, that's what helped me love myself, is having faith in who I can be, because the world that I live in now is not all there is.
What helps you keep the faith?
God, my beliefs, And, I think no matter what you believe in, I think faith, you know, that's what helps me so much, is just knowing that there's more. And I think it's also important to have people you look up to and people you're inspired by, whether you know them personally or not. And stuff like this, like hearing other people's stories, that's what keeps me going. I once went to a conference, the Innocence Conference, the Innocence Network, which is what got my dad out of prison. And yeah, and I met so many exonerees, people that were on death row for something they didn't do. Like, it humbled me so much. And it made me realize that, if my dad and all these people were able to get through all these years of prison, like, how did they do that? Knowing that they weren't supposed to be there. Like, I would have been so mad every day. I don't know how I would have survived that, but they did. And like, that gives me faith. If all of these people can get through these hard times and still come out being a good person and seeing the good, then I can too.
What's love to you now? Has it always been the same? If it hasn't, how do you compare what love used to be when you were younger to what it is to where you're at today?
Oh, I like that. I like that question. I think love when I was younger, you know, when I was growing up with my grandparents, I feel like I was surrounded by love. I had the love that I needed with my family. We have a big family. We had, Christmas together and all those fun things, family events, and there was always so much love. But when I was younger, like high school, I thought love was like when you meet your soulmate, you know? That idea of like, I wonder if I'll ever find love like the movies, you know? Like, that's what love used to be to me. Over time, it's evolved to be, I don't know, I really relate, like, I think love and joy are so compatible. And I think love can be defined as a feeling more than a person or a thing or a place. I think love is something that's pure, it's something that's felt, it's something that can be spread, it's something that can be used as a tool to move forward. And I think love to me now is being present and finding the magic in every moment, even the moments where we're like, how am I going to get through this, you know? Trying to seek the love in that is so powerful. And I think the more we do that, the more we can live in love, which can also help us attract love and welcome love and accept love. Yeah,
Do you think love's a choice?
I do. That's a good question, though. Is love a choice? I do think it's a choice, yeah. I think everyone is capable of loving and being loved, but it's like, do you want it or no?
Could you tell us about a good day? What's a good day like for you?
A good day. I think a good day would be someone else's day. And I only say that because this happened recently where I was in the gym and I was like not enjoying my workout. I was like, I don't want to be here. This is not a good day. And I was just struggling. Like I felt like I couldn't get through my workout. And I just had this intuition gut feeling. There was only me and one other girl in the gym. And the voice in my head, God, whatever you want to call it, was like, go up to her. And I'm like, I smiled at her already and she didn't smile back. Like, she does not want to talk, you know? I'm like, I'm going to leave her be. And I just kept hearing it throughout my workout. Go up to her. You both need it. Go up to her. Go up to her. I'm like, what? So I went up to her. I didn't know what I was going to say. But I went up to her. I'm like shaking inside. I'm like, I'm like, and I just blurted this out, right? I was so embarrassed. But I was like, okay, first of all, I forgot to apply deodorant before this workout, so I'm sorry if I stink. Second of all, I'm proud of you. And she lit up. Like, she smiled so big. And she was like, "You don't smell, and I'm so proud of you too. Like, have the best weekend." And that, like, 10, 15 seconds of a quick exchange of love, that was a good day to me. My day was so much better after that, you know? So I think if you're having a bad day, like, go try to make someone else's day. And aside from that, I think a good day is just like being fully present in every moment. Those have been my best days. Like, whether I'm working or working out or with my partner or with my puppy or, walking the city, like, if I can just be present in those moments, I think that's a good day because something clicked in me the other day where it's like, this day, October 4th, 2021, is never going to happen again, you know? So why not be fully present in it?
How does being present is a process for me, right? I'm
It's
most
hard.
present when I'm doing things that I love.
Yeah.
That's how I know to keep on doing certain things when the time flies by and stuff like that. Um, and then being a dreamer, right? You have to go. You're not present. Like you go
Right.
somewhere else and you envision and then if you're really a dreamer, like you see it all the time.
Mhm.
Um, so then there's like I'm here and I'm there, right? For me,
Yeah.
right?
Makes sense, yeah.
And then like we got to plan for the future, right?
Right, right. We have to
Gotta be
think about
present,
it. Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, what do you do? Like, what helps the most, right? Because we're adults now. I do believe in being present and having the heart of a child, and children are the most present
Yeah,
that you're gonna find, right?
yeah, yeah.
But we also have our responsibilities as adults.
Mhm.
So how do you balance the two, right? Like how do you what do you do to make sure that you have the ability to be present?
Yeah, that's so good. For me, it's been a battle too. And that's why I think about it so much and try to remind myself of
Yeah,
it so much
yeah.
that, listen, this day, it's going to fly by. We say it every 5 o'clock every day. Wow, the day flew by,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So I'm like, dang, like I wasn't fully present in today. How can I be better tomorrow? For me, what's really helped me is kind of preparing the night before. And I think the most important and probably the most difficult thing is having discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Having discipline with sticking to your schedule, something I'm not good at still. Like sticking to your schedule, trying to be on time. Because, like today, we had an appointment, I showed up on time. But with myself, I set appointments and I don't
Yeah,
always
like
show up on
why?
time. Why?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I don't know why we do that. But I think to prepare to be present and to kind of be intentional
Mm-hmm.
is so important. Like preparation and being intentional. Because if we can be intentional and say, okay, I'm going on a walk with my dog and I'm going to leave my phone at home so I can appreciate my surroundings because this is the only hour I can get outside today, you know? Like during this hour, I can plan for my tomorrow. I can like listen to a podcast or I can do something like that, but right now I choose to be present with my dog and with my surroundings because these trees won't look the same tomorrow, you know? This grass, it's all everything's always evolving and I think I don't have a fear of missing out with, going out and partying and stuff. I have a fear of missing out on my own days. Like I have a fear of missing out of being present because in the past I look back and I'm like, I was with family, but I was on my phone. And I don't get to see family often. I'm eating dinner with my partner Mike and he's on his phone and then I'm like, "Oh, he's not present, but I do the same thing." So I try to just be conscious of what being present feels like. Like how do I want to feel?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to regret not being present. I just want to be present and be grateful that I was.
Mm-hmm.
So I think being intentional and kind of preparing to be present because of course there's times to dream. We have to. We have to dream and we have to prepare, but even time blocking, like, okay, from 2 to 3, I'm just going to be present with how I feel, how the day is going, in your workout. Being present can look like keeping your phone in the little pouch you have for your music or like keeping it in your pocket instead of texting and being on calls while you're working out?
What about thoughts, right?
Mhm.
What about if you're working out and then right your thoughts start going and
Right.
I think for me it's scheduling the space.
Yeah.
Like if I
Yeah.
have a lot of shit to do, like
And you
I
want to
am
get that done.
focused on getting like, and if I'm not doing it, it's in the back of my head. So I'm not really like present because
Present.
like I have a ticker,
Right.
right? Like yo, I gotta get
Right.
this shit done, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's either it is discipline and it is
Yeah.
like accepting that like because of the responsibilities we now have and you have to embrace that. We have to
For
embrace it
sure.
and be like this is just what it is and this is what I have to do.
Yeah.
But for me I think it's just having a schedule where like I'm not mentally occupied
Right.
or I'm like man this is just like me time, right? And it can be
Yeah.
for a day, it can be for 5 hours, it can be
Right.
for a half hour. But it's definitely a practice.
It is a practice, and I think it's just, the little effort over time, because I love that quote. What does it say? It's like, if you're 1% better every day, you're
Yeah.
365, just that 1%. That's all. Like, we don't have to put so much pressure on ourselves. But just to quickly wrap that up, too, like, I think being present also means, like, when you have stuff to do, being present in that work, Like, it doesn't always have to mean, like, doing nothing. I think being present just means being fully focused and fully aware with what you're doing in that moment at that time.
What's a bad day look like for you? How do you get through that bad day?
Oh, that's good. I think, hmm, I guess it depends on what you define bad to be,
Define
Like,
it.
like I think most of us, including myself, will say like a bad day is a day where I don't get anything done, or I'm sulking in my emotions, or I'm reliving the past and reliving all my trauma that doesn't matter now. Like, but I also think all of those things, like, we go through seasons, and a season of rest is so important. A season of production is so important, and I think both of those are actually equally important. So, like, originally to that question at first, I was going to say a bad day is me getting in my emotions and not getting anything done. But is that a bad day? Because I think that contributes to my growth and that contributes to my healing. And I think the most important thing is to not get over things, but get through things. And I think sometimes we have to have bad days to do that, you know? So I think a bad day would be me trying to put pressure on myself to get things done when I just can't that day. And sometimes that's okay.
What's a person or an event? That's a great answer, by the way. What's a person or an event that shaped you, good or bad? How's it feel when you reflect on that?
Mm. Let's talk relationships,
Okay.
right? Because at first, like, when we were talking about love, like, that's what my initial definition of it used to be, like, finding a romantic partner and, being in love. But I think I think people that have formed me are the few guys I've been in serious relationships with. And I say that because some may disagree with this, but I think we have multiple soulmates.
Mm-hmm.
I think a soulmate can be in a friend, a romantic partner. Like, I think we have so many soulmates, and I think the previous guys I was with showed me that my grandfather was right. Like, I can't spend my whole life taking care of people, you know? And in my past relationships, that's what I did. I always put them before me. And that taught me and that shaped me to understand that if I can't love myself and I can't be present with myself and I can't find the joy of being alone, then how am I going to enjoy anybody else? Um, so I think it all shaped me to be someone who I want to be someone who can just make someone feel good about themselves. Like, I think all of those relationships made me feel like I wasn't good enough because I wasn't showing up for me. So I think all of it shaped me. All of the relationships I've been in have shaped me um, to understand myself more, like what I do and what I don't want, how I want to act, how I don't want to act, um, things I want to let go of, things I want to welcome into my life. And I think, I mean, so many experiences have shaped us in good or bad ways, but I do think the relationships with friends as well, with all of my soulmates, have taught me so much. Um, yeah, so I think all of the relationships and the friendships I've had have shaped me in good and bad ways.
Yeah. So people shape us, right?
People shape us.
We shape each other.
Right.
And then at some point, you take ownership and start shaping yourself.
Yeah, I love the ownership word.
Or
Yeah.
letting God shape you, however you want to see it, right?
Right, right.
So let's talk relationships.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I do believe we have, I mean, you have multiple soulmates. If in that sense we're saying we have things we need to learn from other people
Mhm.
that are not just learn or even feel and
Mhm.
experience with other people. And if you take that lesson from that individual, whether it be a friend or a partner, like that's something big,
Yeah.
and it could just
Mhm.
be a realization, like the person served their bigger purpose in your life, right?
Yes,
So
yeah.
in that sense, yeah, I do think we have multiple soulmates, but if we're talking relationships, right,
Mhm.
and then so serious relationship, now do you get to choose the soulmate you're staying with
Mm.
and work through that? Do you see it as a choice and being empowered? Like, hey, like I'm choose. I believe we're probably soulmates, but I'm choosing to love you. I'm choosing to
Yeah.
be with you. But firstly, you're gonna love yourself and then grow within that, structure.
Right, right. I completely agree with that. Yeah. I do believe that, like the man I'm with right now, at first I was like, I'm not going to be with this man. Like, he might be a soulmate for a few months where, like, he's teaching me things about myself and I'm
Right.
learning new things about
Right.
men
Yeah.
and,
Right.
all these things. But then it's like, wait, I actually, like, love you and, like, what you're about. And I think soulmate can also go hand in hand with partnership.
Mm.
And I think that's when it's a serious relationship, when you're in partnership and, meeting each other halfway and learning about each other and willingly learning about each other, how they like to be loved. Because we don't all like to be loved the same ways. Not all of us love affection all the time, or, some of us value quality time more than others. But I think a soulmate is exactly what you said. We learn from them and we learn about ourselves through them, while serious relationships involve partnership and mutual effort.
Yeah. And you choose every day.
And you choose that.
Yeah, it's a decision.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what.
Because I don't feel like cleaning the house every day, but I know that if I show up in that way, we're both going to be happier,
Right. Um, I think the power of choice is the biggest thing we have, right? Good or
Mm.
bad, whatever decision you're gonna make. It's just
Yeah.
people make decisions and they make decisions based on other people.
Mhm.
So you have no power in that respect. Like if I'm
Mhm.
making a decision based on someone's outside perception of my decision, is it really my decision, right?
Right.
And I'm not talking like if you're a political leader or something,
Right.
where I'm just talking about regular people.
Yeah.
Um, Even in faith, right? I choose to believe every day.
Yeah.
Even then, I'm not forced.
Right.
So even in a relationship, I choose to be in this relationship every day.
Right.
Like I choose to love you,
Mhm.
and that's the power of it. We all know you can. One day you can wake up and maybe that's not the case,
Right. That happens.
right?
Mhm.
But you are like when you choose that in every aspect of your life, like you are being yourself.
Yeah.
And you are deciding to be in partnership with either another person with God,
Mhm.
with whatever your dreams, right? These are
Yeah.
abstract things, and once you start understanding, I know for me, like I used to make my decisions all based on like resentment, shame, guilt,
Yes.
right? That's what
Easily.
had my decision making.
Right.
And now, and if to go more concrete, I used to blame it on the way I was raised, on my mom, on my dad, and even being an adult making decisions because, well, my dad wasn't around, so I can do this. Or
Mm.
being an adult and making decisions, well, because I was hurt, I can hurt other people,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And at that point, my decisions, I gave them to somebody else. I never took ownership for it.
Mm.
And I was a victim while I'm victimizing other people.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So, when, for me, when everything cleared up, is like the forgiveness, right? I forgave my mom, my dad. Okay, so who am I going to blame now?
Mm.
And you got to look in the mirror.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh shit, right?
Not easy.
And then, like, it's my decision now.
Yeah.
Like, I can go this way or I can go that way.
Right.
And then you just move forward that way. But I went off on a tangent.
No,
What's
yeah.
inspired you?
What's inspired me? Waking up. I think maybe it's just the way the world has been lately, but I think a lot of us are waking up to the simple pleasures in life and like what genuinely makes us happy. Who do we really want to be? What kind of life do we really want to have? And I think what inspires me every day, no matter how I feel when I wake up, is I have another shot today. Like, I'm not here for no reason. None of us woke up for no reason, and I don't take that lightly anymore. So I think every day that I wake up, whether I got a lot done the day before and nothing done the day before, no matter what my day looked like the day before, it's like today I can try again. And that is so inspiring to me, is that every day is a fresh start, and not a lot of people get to wake up every day, you know? So I think the simplicity of that really inspires me to keep on keeping on, I guess.
What's been a humbling experience for you? You
Hmm.
talked about it already.
Yeah, so many things. What else has humbled me? I think being put in my place has humbled me. And what I mean by that is, how do I explain? Like, so many people in my life have humbled me just by showing me who I am. Like when you're younger, you're so influenced. We were just talking about choice. Like, you're so influenced by the people around you, at least I was. I was influenced by the people around me, and I made choices that were not of me, that weren't of love, that weren't of like anything good. And so I think exactly what you were just saying, actually, like having to look in the mirror and check myself and say, like, you did that wrong. You have to accept that you were wrong. You have to accept that you're not perfect. You have to accept that, you've made a lot of mistakes and you're not perfect. And who are you to judge other people? Who are you to ridicule and criticize when you have to look in the mirror and understand that everyone does things for a reason, whether it was a right reason or a wrong reason. We all have a reason, and I think taking ownership, literally what you were just saying, taking ownership has humbled me. Because when I was able to accept my mistakes, I realized that I'm not the shit, and like everyone, I do believe everyone is deserving of all good things, but I don't think that good things come to us just for being good people. I think that's where choice comes in, and that's where action and discipline comes in. And, you know, the old saying goes where it's like, Jesus, take the wheel, but he doesn't sometimes. You have to drive the car, you know? And I think that humbled me, like seeing that because I'm growing into a good person doesn't mean that all good things that I want are going to come to me. And that humbled me, knowing that I have to work for it, and knowing that I have to work to heal my trauma, and knowing that I have to do all of the hard things to have all of the good things, you know? That was humbling for me when I realized that.
What's the biggest thing you do to heal your trauma? If you could say one big thing that you do, it can be concrete or abstract.
I think a lot of people have helped me heal, but I think what's helped me survive, and this may sound taboo or corny, but nature. Like, really, like walking barefoot, laying in the grass and looking up at the sky, and realizing that I am such a small particle in this big giant world, yet there's still so much out there for me, and there's still so much I can change within me and with, outside of me. I think that's what helps me is getting outside and being one with all that we have, and understanding that we're not necessarily separate from everybody. Like, all of us, all of the animals, all of the trees, all of the water. I think everything has purpose. And I think nature's purpose is to bring us back to our divine nature, our authenticity. I think that's where I feel most authentic is when I'm outside, because if thoughts come to me, I let it happen. I don't care who's around. I'm going to cry if I need to cry, I think that's how I get through it is I do things that make me feel good. That toolbox, it's full of all the things that make me feel good. And I allow myself to feel. I don't put pressure on myself to just get over it. I don't think that's healthy. I think we have to get through it, not over it. And that's what's helped me, just being honest with myself, being honest with others, taking ownership, understanding that, life can be simple. And I do think we're meant to thrive and be happy and be healthy. And that looks different for everybody, but I'm on a journey of figuring out what that looks like for me, and it feels really good. So that's how I've healed myself over time.
Go in your mind and think. This life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Can you tell us about a time in your life that you relate with the word war?
Yeah, actually, I kind of wrote about this yesterday. I think something all of us have in common is that we will always be in battle with an inner enemy known as resistance. I think resistance is a battle, a daily battle. And this can be in simple forms like resisting the gym, resisting being in a relationship, resisting having open conversations, resisting facing your trauma. I think we all resist so many things. But what I've learned recently is that where we have the most resistance are actually with the things that can benefit us and evolve us and grow us. So for me, that resistance of accepting that my grandfather and my mom are both dead now, like I had so much resistance towards that, and sometimes I still do, because I'm like, God, why me? Why couldn't you wait just a little longer for him to walk me down the aisle, for my mom to not be an addict? Why couldn't you, I have all these questions, but I think the biggest battle is resistance, but we can either live with resistance or we can fight resistance. And I think that's where the word war comes in for me, because as humans, like, it's so natural for us to not do the things that we don't feel like doing. But I think resistance is a feeling that just encourages us to not do those things. But I think resistance also comes up the most when we're following our purpose and discovering our truth and, reconnecting with our authenticity and identifying our identity. I think resistance comes in the most when we need to do something. And I think that's where I go to war every day in my head. It's like, I don't feel like doing that, but I know it's going to take me to really cool places.
How do you ease? I mean, the feeling of resistance sucks.
So bad.
It's like, it makes you feel, at least for me, it makes me feel like, am I doing the right thing?
Uh-huh.
Because that's
Oh,
what it feels
yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
contrary to what you're doing. So
Mm-hmm.
then the resistance is like, at that point you got to discern, okay, well, I mean, what's happening, right?
Right.
Um, I guess the opposite of that, right, is just accepting it.
Yeah.
Accepting what maybe the resistance coming from, or because there's an actual maybe thing in your life that's making you resist.
Mm-hmm.
But man, that's tough, right?
It is.
Because it sucks. I guess you got to use faith, right?
Right. Faith. And something that's kind of helped me battle it lately, because resistance is something new that I'm learning about. If anyone is battling resistance as much as I am, I highly recommend the book The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. It's a quick read and it's all about resistance and why we need to fight it and go to battle with it every day, because he says that when we fall into resistance, we're staying as our lower self, but if we fight against it and show up or like against resistance, then that's where we are developing our higher selves. And the only way I've battled it is to just not work from where I'm feeling, but where I want to feel. Like, that feeling after the gym is so much better than the feeling before the gym, and I chase that instead of how I'm feeling. It's a work in progress every day, and I don't always battle resistance or conquer it, but it's just another thing that involves practice, I guess.
So same type of question. Go in your mind and think. This life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Tell me about a time in your life that you can relate to the word peace.
Mm, I think I don't want to get too spiritual, but
You can?
okay. Um, I finally opened the door to God's knocks last year, and I just realized so much between then and now. And I think, kind of like what I was saying earlier, I think a big purpose of life is simplicity and like enjoying who we are and what we do and who we surround ourselves with, and enjoy the work we're doing while building the life we're creating. And all of that it goes back to presence, like being present. And like the last time I felt deep peace was this morning, and I'm thinking about what I was doing, and I wasn't doing anything. Like, I was sitting outside with my dog. It was kind of cold, so I had my sweatshirt on, my warm coffee in my hand. I was journaling and writing out my thoughts. And I feel like when you release everything you feel and accept it and just have the faith and have the belief, no matter what you believe in, just believing and trusting in yourself, knowing that there's so much more to come and there's so much more that we're here for, and just living in that, like seeing the magic in that and always seeking good, it's just always going to bring you peace. I find so much encouragement in the word, but also like just living. And I think when I really started developing peace, especially inner peace, it was all inside. It wasn't like when I was on vacation. You know, I think so many people look forward to the weekends and to vacation because that's where they experience peace. But I think it's so much more
Or
exciting.
just a release, or just
Yes, like
stuff.
just nothing to worry
Yeah,
about.
exactly.
Yeah, totally. But I think life is so much more exciting when you can access inner peace even during the chaos. You know, like something I've been thinking about lately too is seasons because we just transitioned into the season of fall. But like during the fall, all the leaves are beautiful and vibrant and changing colors, but that's only because they're dying, you know? Leaves, when they're growing and they're healthy, they're green. But when they're dying, they change color and then they fall into the ground and they're dead until a season where they bloom again. And that's where I think peace lives, like in all the seasons. You know, even during a season of chaos, there's peace to be found. And I think it's definitely not easy. And I hope I don't sound like someone that's happy every day because that is not the case at all. And I don't always feel peace, but I always seek it. And I think that's what always brings me to peace is that I never stop seeking it.
So what do you do concretely?
I write a lot
Mm-hmm.
and I allow myself to feel as I write. Even if I'm writing and it like doesn't even make sense, no one's going to read it, so it doesn't matter, you know? Just like letting everything out,
Yeah.
you know, and being honest with myself about how I feel and confessing that yeah, I haven't always been a good person and that's okay because I am now and I'm still growing to be, you know. I think the journey of life is the journey of growth, I should say. It's just, it's everlasting, you know. There's always someone inside of us that we can be inspired by. And I think that brings me peace. Just knowing that this isn't the end. And if it is, at least I can say I tried.
What's that someone that's inside of you?
Who is she? Her persona is she is someone that is just fearless.
Mm-hmm.
Someone that can walk into a building without worrying about what are people going to think of me? What are people going to think of my outfit? What are people going to think of the acne that comes out every now and then? Like, what are people going to think? You know, that woman is someone who doesn't care. That woman is someone who is working hard to make others happy as well. While also, like, that happiness comes from her, though. You know, she doesn't seek happiness or peace in anyone or anything, it's just always there. And she is someone who isn't known by her name, but how she made people feel. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I would say, right, abstractly, God, of course, that's what's in me and above me and beyond me.
Mhm.
But yeah, me, like, it's the same shit, except it's me when I was like 5 years old.
Ah,
I never forgot what it felt like to really believe.
right.
And I do think that, me personally, when I was, man, I had faith, and it's not like a religious faith, it's the faith of a child. To know that you're taken care of,
Mm.
to see the beauty in every day, that if something bad happens to you, as soon as it happens, as soon as it's over, you've already forgiven the person.
Wow, yeah.
And you keep on going with joy, and you have a huge smile, and it's, to me, that's my ultimate reality. Like, that's the inspiration, because it exists. It's not anything like I'm like it's there. I felt it before. It's real,
It's
and
real.
to live in that truth. So yeah, that was beautiful.
Love that.
Can you tell us about a truly difficult time in your life, how it felt, and how you endured?
Yeah. Let me think about something different. Okay, so I'll dive deeper into my mom's passing. Um, Similar to my grandfather, I had so many dreams and ideas of what could be. And so unfortunately, and I hate saying this, but it's the truth, I knew that the call would come one day where she overdosed. Um, Even though I had hope, I wasn't exactly surprised when I got the call. It was 4 in the morning. Wow, today is her anniversary of her death. And I'm just realizing that right now, October 4th. And it's so crazy because on my Instagram this morning, I wrote that today is a special day because I'm opening the door to do something new here and now, right here. This is something so new and uncomfortable for me. And it's the 1 year anniversary of getting my puppy. And it's also the 1 year anniversary of writing in my faith journal. And I'm just realizing it's the 3 year anniversary of my mom's passing. And it was so tough for me because I had to wake up at 4 in the morning and drive 3 hours away to the hospital. And I had to walk in the room and see all these tubes in her. And right after I saw all the tubes, I saw her tattoo that I've never seen before that said, um, uh, something like, fight trumps flight, saying that she's a fighter. She doesn't always need to be high, you know? Fighting is better than being high, basically. I think that's how I understand it, you know? And when I saw that, I literally dropped to the ground. And I was like, shit, like, she had the mentality of fighting, you know? I believe that, like, being an addict is so much deeper than anyone can imagine, unless you're an addict yourself or were or grew up with one or you know someone personally, you know? I think it's so easy to look at someone on the streets that's an addict and judge them. It's so easy to do that. What's hard is what most people don't do and understand them, have empathy for them, try and just like, you know, feel for them a little. And that was the day where I like really felt for my mom. Um, and the reason it was so hard for me is obvious reasons, you know, any girl wants their mom in their life. And like I said, I had so many dreams and hopes and wishes for us. But the way I endured that is to, like I've been saying, allow myself to feel. I yelled at her. I felt bad for her. I told her I'm sorry. I told her I forgive her. I told her I love her. I said it all right there because I didn't want to leave her body the way I left my grandfather, not being able to say the things I wanted to say. So I said everything I felt in that moment. And it was in that moment where I decided to forgive her. You know, I sat with her for 2 days before my sister and I made the decision to pull the plug because the doctor said, you know, it's either that or she's going to be a vegetable. And like, I just find it's so crazy that my sister and I were barely in contact with her, but we were her emergency contact. She planned that. She knew that day hopefully wouldn't. She was fighting, but she figured if the day does come, I want it to be them. And so that was probably the hardest thing I've ever gone through, is seeing all those tubes in her and just viewing addiction in a much different light that day. Yeah, and that's the way I endured it, to just say everything I felt. And you know, from that point on, just like with my grandfather, I looked at things in a different way, you know? She wrote me this book. She made me like a huge, thick collage type of thing when she was in prison. She was super creative. It's like a lot of art on the front and poems on the inside. And she wrote me this long poem about trusting in yourself and that we all have an inner compass. And it's just incredible to me that she had that mindset even while she was an addict, you know? And so, I don't know, that was definitely something that shaped me and that was extremely painful, but I endured it by just being honest with her and with myself and trying to just learn something and take something away from it.
Could you tell us about a truly joyous moment in your life and how that felt?
Yeah. I think one of the most joyous moments for me was also traumatic, but watching my niece be born. Like, it was so much crazier than I anticipated or thought, but like the joy of watching a life be born and watching birth, watching someone be introduced into the world, that was like the most joyous feeling ever. Uh, and it felt good that I got to be there for my sister during that time, and I was happy that she chose me and her husband to do that with her. And it was just a different type of joy that makes me excited for motherhood. Like the power of bringing someone into this world, you know? I just think it was so beautiful, and I've never felt that kind of joy before seeing someone like their first seconds of life.
What keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? Uh, I guess the dreams I have, like just everything I see for myself and the hope I have for the world. It really keeps me up at night just knowing that, like, I mean, the most simple, stupid things, like half of the ocean hasn't been discovered, you know? Like, all the crazy wonders of the world, like how much beauty there is to see and when and how I want to see it, and like how I can get into different cultures and like learn from them, you know? I want to learn so much more than I already know, and I feel like I don't know anything even with all I've taught myself. I feel like there's so much more to explore and discover, and that just excites me.
So you may have answered this question. The next question is what keeps you going every day?
Um yeah, I think what keeps me going is knowing that yeah, there's so much to be found. There's so much more to see, and knowing that like I'm going to meet people who are going to change my life, and hopefully vice versa. Hopefully I'll meet people that I can change lives with, and hopefully I can change their life too. Like that just yeah, it like sparks a different kind of fire in me.
Imagine you're in the hospital today with only hours to live. What would be your regrets, if any?
None. Yeah, no. I think we're all uniquely designed and like specifically assigned a purpose that no one can take away from us. And so I think even when it feels like there's so much chaos and that I've got nothing done and I'm confused, or times where I was broke and like all these things, I think it was all aligned that way for a reason. And I don't regret anything.
You told me what your dreams were as a kid. What are your dreams now?
Uh um I have so many dreams. One of my biggest dreams is to get my hands dirty. And what I mean by that is, like hopefully one day I'll have enough of money to build a school or do something for people that can drastically change lives by numbers. But I want to be the one to build that school. I don't want to hire someone to build the school. I want to get my hands dirty. I want to help people have clean water, and I want to do that with my own hands. I want to eventually be a philanthropist. I want to travel and adopt new ideas from different people from all over. And I want to help people bring their pain into passion and purpose. And I want to help people have a transformation like I did or better. I want to help people understand that their wounds are really just going to be wisdom someday. I really want to help people see that, and I want to instill this type of faith in them that wakes them up and helps them realize that there is a lot to live for and that they are capable of what they believe they could do when they were younger too. So I think as a child, my dream was to be a teacher, and now I want to do that just in a different way. I don't want to be in a classroom, but I want to be out in the world.
You're the co-author of your life story. If you can envision a picture perfect ending, how does that look like? How does that feel? And it doesn't got to be like the ending. It can just be like the picture, like a movie, happy ending, something like that.
Right, right. Becoming a billionaire, but I don't think I mean that in terms of money. I think I mean like I think a real billionaire is someone who impacts a billion people.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be a billionaire in that sense. But again, I don't want my impact to be like, oh, that was Alicia Casenza. No, like I want them to remember my face and what I made them feel. To me, a happy ending would be me on stage announcing that I just created something great that all of us can benefit from. A happy ending where people are moving from love, acting from love, and accepting love. I think that's my happy ending. And like in my head right now, I'm just envisioning so many people smiling and hugging each other. And like that seems so far fetched right now, but I still have hope for that.
You said you want people to remember your face and how'd you make them feel. How'd you make yourself? How'd you make yourself feel?
Proud. There are so many times in my life where I literally dreamed of the things I have now, and I wished for this person I am now. And I think so many of us forget it. Like, I'm sure everyone wished for what they have now, and they forgot about that wish because it's happened already. But I think I've made myself feel proud, and like, there's still that part of me that's like, oh, if only my pops could see who I am now. Like, he always loved me for who I was, but when he passed, I was still immature in so many ways, and that's okay because I'm only 26, and I'm sure I'm immature in many other ways now too. But I'm just so proud for how much I've overcome and how many challenges I've conquered and how many obstacles I've faced. I think so many of us should be so proud of ourselves because there's things we probably didn't think we could get through that we did, and to me that means that we're going to be able to conquer other challenges too, and that's just going to breed us and develop us into who we're meant to be to have the life that we want to have.
Briefly, do you think that your dad and your grandpa, that abstractly they see you in different ways now?
I do.
Does that give you peace?
It does, it does. And I think even if they didn't, I would still have peace because I'm proud of me. And I think no one can understand you more than you can. Like, some people may still ridicule my dad because he is very outspoken and he doesn't care. He has strong opinions, but it makes him who he is. And I think even without other people being proud of him, he's still proud of him because he has overcome so much more than an average person in that situation could. I think, sorry, that's not brief. I'm like, woo, I could go on forever. But yeah, it does bring me peace that my pops and my dad still to this day will tell me he's proud of me, and that feels really good.
That's it.
Cool.